What happened back there?
I don't care.
Hey, I've got an idea. Let's rock talk.
Hello, everybody. This is Lord Magicus, and we're here to talk about the state of the merfolk. And with me today, I have PixelTamer. He has been on this channel before and definitely was excited to be able to talk about some of the new cards with everybody. So, welcome.
Yeah, excited is an understatement. I might have been one of the loudest voices blowing up the Discord server when certain cards were announced, and there was a lot of loud voices going on being excited.
Yeah, this has definitely been the biggest set that we've got pretty much ever. Like,
Yeah, in a long time. Like, this more than makes up for original Ixalan block.
we got two of the most powerful cards in this set that our Merfolk deck has ever seen, and a ton of like other playable stuff for like Pioneer and Commander. So
Yeah, and these stupidly powerful cards are legal in Modern too, not just Legacy.
this is true. Yes, it was just shocking because usually that's not the case. If we get something like True Name Nemesis, it's like, okay, well, we can play it in Legacy, but like we don't get to use the really fun stuff in Modern. But no, this time we got the fun stuff for every format because they're actually in like the standard set. So
Yeah, so like arena players on Historic are going to have some fun times with some of these new toys too.
yes, they will. And actually, one of the commander decks they released was also a Merfolk themed deck. Even though it was not necessarily like a tribal based deck, we still got a lot of cool Merfolk cards in it. Unfortunately, I don't think the arena players are going to get the first one that we're going to talk about, but he's definitely one of the coolest ones. He's the lead commander for the deck and is Hackball of the Surging Soul. I think this guy is going to be like the default Merfolk commander for quite some time because it seems unlikely that we're getting our Bant Merfolk commander anytime in the near future. So for all the Civic
Yeah,
players, we're probably going to be using this guy because he generates some insane value here. So he's a 4 mana guy, 3/3. The beginning of combat on your turn, each Merfolk you control explores. So you'll reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, it goes in your hand. Otherwise, you can either put it on top or in the graveyard, and that creature that explored gets a +1/+1 counter. And whenever Hackball attacks, you can put a land from your hand on the battlefield, but if you don't, you draw a card. So he's kind of like a rampant growth that also causes every merfolk to explore, so he can end up drawing you like a bajillion cards every turn.
yeah, he draws potentially many cards. He also puts a lot of 1/1 counters out to grow the board.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot faster than Kamena could.
And not only that, like unlike Kumena, who requires you to like skip attack steps in order to be able to like tap their merfolk to use his abilities, Hackballs is just triggers that happen automatically every turn. So it's way easier to get value out of it. Even if he doesn't even have to attack. Like you can just play him and then go to combat, and then all of a sudden, no, well, my 3 merfolk are going to cause you to explore 3 times, so you can get draw some lands or put some counters and creatures.
Yeah, I was playing him last night, and he was just tremendous value.
One thing I should note, I believe I read that the ruling for him is that all of the Merfolk Explorers are going to happen at the same time. They're not going to be individual triggers.
That's
Which,
right. It
it's
is a single triggered ability that says each merfolk explores. It is one item on the stack which causes multiple merfolk to perform the action of exploring. We don't get priority between them, so we can't do library manipulation to change
yeah,
what the top card of our library is, unless we're throwing something in the bin off of explore.
yeah. Yeah, I think you can choose which order you want to explore with your Merfolk in, but
Yes, I
yeah.
think that's correct.
So other than that, yeah, it'll be one triggered ability, which it was unclear at first how that was going to be, but I think that's the cleanest way for that. So that's kind of good to know. But
Yeah, there's quite a bit of back and forth in the commander channel trying to figure it out, and I'm glad we came up with what ended up being the right interpretation.
it's this card is definitely going to be good. Like one of the hardest things for like commanders, especially for Merfolk, is having a commander that is good on its own and generates value. And I think this is going to be better than something like Kamena simply because it doesn't have to it doesn't have like anti synergy with what you're trying to do. So like yeah, like I said, Kamena, you have to tap a bunch of your Merfolk, and if you're tapping your creatures, that means you're not actually attacking. And if you're playing like a Merfolk deck, you're trying to be aggressive with your creatures. So I mean, playing with a bunch of tribal creatures is not always like easy because of board wipes and stuff. So getting value out of stuff immediately is a lot more important because
Yeah,
there's a lot
like
more removal to go around. So
yeah, and like for Kumena, you had to have Marrow Commerce or the Liege from Lorman Shadowmoor to untap
yep,
your creatures, so you could both attack and then use them for value.
yeah. So
But here we can just get value at start of combat and then do whatever we got to do.
yes, so I think, and if you haven't watched the professor's review of the Lost Caverns of Ixalan Commander decks, that you should definitely do so. He does a great job talking about the value and the strength of each of the decks, and I'll the too long didn't watch is that they're all very good and they are worth
Yeah,
buying, all four
he
of
was
them.
like the happiest I've seen in quite a while, and yeah, they're all really good. They've all got some nice reprints in them, and they're all reasonably decent to play. A few of the veterans have been posting on the in Discord saying like, other than the mana base, this looks really solid, and like I think it's a great starter deck for Merfolk Commander players.
Yep. So I'm definitely going to be picking up one of them myself. The only reason I haven't so far is that my store ran out of them. So uh, hopefully by
Yeah,
this week I'll get one.
there's delays on them as well. As always these days, there's some part of the product that gets delayed.
Yeah. But there's some other really cool cards that are here for the commander deck. So let's take a look at some of them. So we have a whole pile of cards to look through here. So here we got Deeproot Historian, which gives Merfolk and Druid cards in your graveyard retrace. So retrace lets you cast them from the graveyard by discarding a land. Well, if we notice, all the Explorer is going to put tons of lands in your hand. So, and if you put all the cards from the top of your deck into your graveyard, then you can discard the lands to cast them from the graveyard. So it's an excellent combination with the commander for your deck, where you're getting now all these free spells that you get to cast using all the extra lands that it's drawing you.
Yeah, plus something really cool and special about this card is this is the first card in the game that gives permanent spells retrace. Previously to this, like it was only ever seen on instants and sorceries, and the red and six emblem just gave retrace to instants and sorceries. So here, it's a big deal that we can retrace creature cards now. I'm definitely curious about maybe trying it in Legacy, but it's probably too expensive. But it's
Yeah,
still just super exciting because it's opening up new design space too.
4 mana is usually a little bit too much for like a kind of a fair creature in Legacy if you're not playing fast mana, which Merfolk usually doesn't. But this is going to be really good for the commander deck because it also gives you more resilience versus all the removal. So if somebody wipes the board, you can play Deeproot Historian and then start playing all the creatures from your graveyard with it.
Yeah, exactly. Bait your local control player into casting a verdict or a wrath or whatever, and then just smile, cast deeper historian, and start bringing back the fish.
So I think this card is really cool. It's unique and um, yeah, it's it's a design I didn't really think that I was gonna see, like, but it actually kind of works, and I think it does exactly the kind of thing that we want the deck to do, and it complements the commander of the deck very, very well. So
Yeah, because one of the long-standing concerns about Merfolk and Commander is we're doing quote-unquote small magic when everybody
hmm
else is ramping up into big crazy stuff, and well, okay, here's our extra lands that we don't necessarily need to play. Well, let's just bring back all the stuff and get more value out of it.
yeah, exactly. So another card that is in the commander deck that I think is this one might be a legacy playable card. So it's in the commander deck, so you can't play it in modern, but you can play it in legacy. Singer of Swift Rivers, and this has another very powerful ability to it. So it's a 3/2 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, you put a shield counter on another creature you control. So if it would be dealt damage or destroyed, you remove a shield counter from it instead. And you can cast Merfolk spells as though they had flash. So now you can wait till the end of your opponent's turn to flash in all your stuff, like your True Name Nemesis, instead of having to do it all in your turn. So especially now if you've explored and you have a ton of mana that you've been dumping every turn, well, now you can just deploy all your threats at the end of your opponent's turn, so you don't have to play them into those board wipes.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this card. I really want to try it out.
And
Um,
it's a
it
natural.
protects.
I was gonna say it's a natural answer to removal as well, giving a shield counter in response to something like like a lightning bolt means that your creature is safe. So it has some. It's similar to like Swift Warden, but it's a little bit different because it can also like protect it from something like dying in combat. If you're blocking a creature that you know is going to kill it, you can give it a shield counter so it will survive combat. So there's a
Yep, or
interesting
like
utility.
non-combat or destroy effects. Like if you are keeping a permanent locked down with some other card we're going to be talking about soon, and the opponent casts a Wrath or a Verdict in this format, we can just sacrifice. We can cast and sacrifice the Swift Rivers to effectively protect the other card.
Yes, you can save a creature from Supreme Verdict with this, which is really cool. So you may consider doing something like that. It's there are some scenarios like Swift Warden would protect you from something like Swords to Plowshares, where this wouldn't, but there are some things that this protects you from that like Swift Warden wouldn't. So there's some give and take, but the fact that it gives all your Merfolk spells flash, I think, is huge. So now you can like wait till the end step to cast your Lord of Atlantis, which is very good.
Yeah, I am so excited to try this. The problem is just I'm really struggling with slots for my tropical brews these days.
Yeah.
It's so weird to be struggling for slots in Legacy Merfolk, but here we are.
Yes. So I think this card obviously is very powerful in Commander and probably going to be powerful in the Tropical Legacy deck. So,
Yeah, it is on the short list of cards to test.
and then we have a couple other cards that are worth looking at here. This is another card. I think this is actually in the set. I don't know if it's going to see play in Pioneer at all, but it could. It is it's Jadelight Splunker, and it's a green and an X, and when it enters, you can explore X times. So it's a way to get value. It scales over the course of the game, so if you draw it with like 4 mana, you get to explore 3 times. I mean, for a value creature, it's not bad. Gets the lands off the top of your deck and also makes it a little bit bigger. I'm not sure how useful it will be in Pioneer, but I mean, I would definitely include it in the Commander deck. It's worth looking at, I think.
Yeah, it's a great mana sink for Commander. My concerns with it in 60 card formats are it's really got no synergy whatsoever with Ether Vial in Modern
Right.
Legacy or Collected Company in Modern, Pioneer, Explorer, maybe even Standard. Well, not Standard.
This seems like the kind of like Jadelight Ranger. I feel like this card might see more play in non-Merfolk decks in 60 card formats than it would in actual Merfolk.
I'm kind of leaning that way because, like, if we want something that plays nice with Vial or Coco, like, we have better options with each of 1, 2, and 3 mana.
Yeah, so
The
I think
flexibility is nice.
it'll be good in the Commander deck because it's a huge mana sink, and like it kind of like you were saying, it helps play big Magic when you have like a huge threat that you can deploy late in the game, but it's also playable early on too. So
Yeah, X spells are often powerful and flexible, and this fits the bill, especially if you have one of the ways to do more exploring that are available in this set.
yep. So the next one is Sentinel of the Nameless City. Now, if you have seen my post on Twitter, this was one of the cards that was in my sealed pool, and this card was insanely powerful and sealed. It
I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. Tell me all the cool stuff.
it's Sveilun at home.
Yeah, that was the joke going around on Discord, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's a 3/4 with Vigilance. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a map token. So immediately, as soon as it enters, you get a map, and the map lets you pay 1, tap, sacrifice it, and you can make any creature you control explore. But you can only do it as a sorcery, so it can't be like a combat trick.
Yeah,
However,
this is one of the new mechanics out of Lost Caverns, and it's a really good mechanic, at least in Limited.
yeah, it's value basically. So you kind of get like a scry or maybe a draw if it's a land, and your creatures can get bigger from it. But this thing, with vigilance, it means you get to attack with it almost for free every turn. Every time it attacks, it gets another map. So this creature will just keep making itself bigger and bigger each time it attacks. At 3 mana, it fits very nicely in the curve for Collected Company if you're building a deck with that in it. And it's not legendary like Sveilun, so you can play it. It's actually good in multiples. And a 3/4 vigilance for 3 is a pretty good rate for that. And then getting the map tokens on top of that is, I think, really good value for it. So
Oh, Yeah, 3/4 vigilance for 3 is very efficient. Like you said, it's going to grow. It's going to find cards. It's going to help the rest of the board grow potentially. Maybe you've got a flying merfolk that you want to get
Mm-hmm.
through, and yeah, it's good. It's one of the things we wanted most out of this set was powerful cards that just happen to be merfolk, and this fits the bill. It probably won't see play in the larger 60 card formats, but it might see something in Pioneer.
I think that this could be, yeah, if Merfolk and Pioneer is a thing, like this is a card that could definitely fit that deck because it is a nice, powerful, grindy card, and I think that's kind of what the deck wants.
Yeah, that's kind of the name of Magic these days. It's just ongoing value generation.
Yeah. And speaking of the green cards that are generate value for us, we have C Note Scout. It's our new 1-drop. It's a 1/1
Yeah, this is like
Explore. That's it. 1/1 that it explores when it enters. So
yeah, it is a deceptively simple card, and it is super exciting. On the Lost Caverns debut stream, when they first introduced this card, they said that this is what they wanted Branch Walker to be, but they weren't allowed to print it at that point, so they had to make it a 2-mana 2/1 instead.
so
And
the,
like 1 mana is all the difference here. It's instant for tropical, I think.
yeah, so the thing that it kind of like gets compared to, I think, is like Kumena Speaker, which for 1 mana can be a 2/2, but you have to Kumena Speaker only really works if you're playing like Breeding Pool and you have access to it. I think in Pioneer especially, Kumena Speaker is a little bit harder to actually consistently have be a 2/2 because you don't have fetch lands to guarantee that you're going to have that breeding pool in turn 1 all the time. So if you're leading off in something like Botanical Sanctum, you're just playing like a 1 mana 1/1 until you have other creatures in play. The C Note Scout is more playable off the mana you have available, and it's either going to be a 1 mana 2/2 or it's going to be a 1 mana card that draws you a land. So I think either way, like that's a mode that I'm happy to have.
Yeah, like assuming a normal 20 land build, 2/3 of the time this is going to reveal a non-land card and thus be a 2/2, and you can throw away a card that you might not want. Or like you said, that last 1/3 of the time it is a 1/1, sure, but you also drew a card. But you drew a card without drawing a card, so Orcish Bowmasters can just sit
Yes,
on its thumbs.
yes. So I think that it is definitely possible that we could see like a tropical build that plays like Speaker and C Note Scout together. But Scout definitely, I think it's a little bit more powerful on its own because you're less dependent upon having that island forest land in play in order to be able to like have your 2/2 on turn 1. Whereas you can play like even with like Cavern of Souls, you can play this and still it can get its counter on it.
Yeah, I am looking at playing 4 of this and 4 Tide Shaper as my starting 1-drop slots in my new brews.
So yeah, it's only an uncommon, but it's actually deceptively powerful, and it's also going to have a nice promo that I'm sure everybody's going to like. Up here we go. Yeah, let's see it. The promo looks really really cool. I like this a
Yeah,
lot.
it's just the art's the same, but the frame is just cool.
Yep.
And just like a Silver Gill Adept, this is a very simple card. It does not look exciting, but it's just a good value workhorse. It's going to help make the deck flow and help us get what we need to win.
Yes. And with that, now we get to start talking about like the major additions to the deck. So let's look at the first one, which itself is not a Merfolk, but it's okay. It's Deep
It is a
Root.
merfolk and all but creature type. Like,
Yes.
if they were still supporting tribal, I guess Kindred now, this would totally be a Kindred enchantment merfolk.
Mm-hmm. So, first one I want to say, I'm not a huge fan of extended borders and cards, but I will say this is probably one of the best extended border cards I've ever seen.
Yeah, agree.
So it looks really really nice here. But yep, Deep Root Pilgrimage. Whenever one or more non-token Merfolk you control become tapped, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token with hexproof. Now, this set's version of like Deeproot Waters, which was a 3 mana enchantment and required you to cast a merfolk in order to get a token. But this one is only 2 mana, and is all it requires is that a non-token merfolk becomes tapped, which is easy to do because you can just attack with one. However, there are some other ways to tap stuff, and that might include crewing vehicles like Mindlink Mech or Smuggler's Copter, or
Yeah,
using abilities like Rishidan Dockhand.
yeah. Dockhand has been coming back into the equation. I played it in my Legacy test tonight, and I didn't have both out at the same time, but I did have an opponent force of will at turn one Dockhand, which was hilarious.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah, but Smuggler's Copter is going to be exciting here. Um, Mindlink Mech is one that some of the Discord is fond of. There's a new boat vehicle in this set that might be interesting for Standard. And then, of course, there's always Mutavault in Modern.
Yes, that is a
Spend 1 mana to turn into a creature, and then tap the Mutavault for mana, and hey, look, you've got another Merfolk.
yep. Now, the cool thing is that because these have hexproof, these tokens are going to be incredibly difficult to get rid of.
Yeah, my opponent in my last match tonight went through the effort to get Swords to Plowshares back on top of their library to try to stabilize, but I was swinging with the True Name Nemesis and making a bunch of 1/1 hexproof tokens, and I think they realized that they couldn't target anything because they immediately conceded after they resolved the shark that drew them the Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, that's rough, and it's such a powerful recurring source of card advantage because every one of those tokens gets bigger from each of our lords, and every one of those tokens is another curse catcher that we can throw away to something like Fidalian Hex Catcher if we need to. So they're defensive in that regard, but they're also very offensive as well when we combine them with lords and Island Walk.
Yeah, did we talk about how this kind of gives True Name Nemesis pseudo vigilance yet?
Not yet. Nope. So I think with both Sphaloon and True Name Nemesis, this card is incredibly strong. True Name because it means it can attack because it has protection from everything. It never gets blocked. So one of the things that you normally have trouble with sometimes is stabilizing a board when you resolve True Name. It's like, okay, I want to attack with it, but I'm going to get attacked back by something really big and scary, and I don't really have a good way to defend if I attack. So how having this out with True Name means you can attack, get in your 3 damage, create a 1/1 token that has hexproof, and your opponent is not likely going to be able to remove the token, so you can just chump block with the token, which effectively means your True Name gets to be on both offense and defense. And
Yeah, because there's not a lot of creatures, at least in Legacy, that are attacking on the ground and have trample that we care about.
it's very similar with Sphaloon. Once you get your 2 hexproof tokens out, it is going to be kind of difficult to get rid of her because she has indestructible as long as you have at least 2 other merfolk, and you're not going to get rid of the token, so the only thing that's going to work to get rid of her is like exile removal, because anything that deals damage or tries to destroy her is just going to fail. She can attack and draw cards as much as she wants and keep making more tokens each turn.
Yeah, this card doesn't have a lot of impact if you play it on turn 2 necessarily, unless you have a 1-drop you can swing with, but play it on turn 3 or turn 4 once you've started to assemble a board, and this is going to be silly value town.
Yeah, and it has some really strong synergy if you want to play with like Rigid and Dockhand and take a more controlling role in a match. Now you can like tap down your opponent's lands to slow them down, but every time that you do that, you're now increasing your own board because when it taps, it's making another hexproof token for you.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest issues we had with Dockhand when it came out is like, yeah, it's Rashad and Port on a Merfolk, that's great, but in order to do Rashad and Port on a Merfolk, it means we can't attack, and we
Correct.
like to attack. So this kind of solves that problem in a nice way.
Now, the only thing that's kind of not great about this is it's whenever one or more token or non-token merfolk become tapped. So when you declare attacks, it only makes 1 token per combat. Now,
Yeah,
that said, there are some effects like crewing a smuggler's copter, for instance, where you can actually tap the merfolk separately in order to do that, because you can actually crew something that's already been crewed. So if you have a vehicle out, you can get a token for each merfolk, or if you have stuff like Mutavault or Dockhand, they can use they can either like tap for mana or their ability to get separate tokens as well. So there are a couple ways around the limitation in this, but for combat, you're only going to get 1 for attacking.
yeah, and in Commander, you can go silly with something like Cryptolith Rights,
Yep.
because you can just float 1 mana, float 1 mana, float 1 mana, float 1 mana, make 4 tokens, now cast my 4 mana spell.
And also with Kumena, like lets you tap all of your creatures, so you can tap them to draw cards and then make a bunch of tokens, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, you could like tap 5 non-token merfolk one at a time to give Kamena unblockable 5 times, and then tap your 5 brand new tokens to to put 1/1 counters on your board because Kamena doesn't care if those tokens just came in. He
Yep.
just wants to tap merfolk.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a few different options as to how to get maximum kind of value out of this. So I think it'll be really good against the more grindy games where we really want to be able to beat removal, especially like the Rakdos decks that tend to have lots of fatal pushes and lightning bolts. They're going to be hard pressed to use them when you're just flooding the boards with 1/1s that they can't interact with. So I think, yeah, those are the kind of matches I think this will be really good for. I don't know how useful it might be against like faster or combo kind of matches, but
Yeah, I've been siding it out against combo so far,
yeah,
but I know that the modern side of the Discord is very excited about using this against scam.
I think so. Yeah, because like Fury is not going to be able to target like any of these tokens, so being able to put something on the board that can actually stay there and defend you is worth a lot.
Plus, once you stick it, they can't remove an enchantment in red black most of the time. So
Yeah, it's
it
very
just means
hard.
once you get a merfolk down, you're suddenly starting to develop a board, and it doesn't matter if they have removal as much.
It's also worth noting this is an enchantment that is good in multiples. So if you have two or three of them out, it just gets stupid.
Yeah, we are definitely summoning the school, and I don't mean that sorcery from Lorwyn.
Nope. So I'm very excited to see how this takes effect. Uh, I think it's doing better in Legacy than I thought it would be. I don't know if if there's gonna be room in a Vintage list to put this, but I mean, at least Modern and Legacy, it's going to be very good in. So I'm
Yeah,
excited to try it.
yeah, instant multi-format all-star, I think, but not as much of an all-star as the next card we're going to talk about.
No, we saved the best one for last, and that is Tishana's Tidebinder. So it is a 3/2 for 3 with Flash, and its ability is a little bit complicated, so we'll break it down in a second. So when it enters the battlefield, it counters up to one target activated or triggered ability.
Yep.
If
So step one, stifle, and get a
yes,
3/2. That's already good.
yes. Now, if you counter an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tishana's Tidebinder remains in the battlefield.
So now it's also a Merfolk Trickster with a duration like a Fiend Hunter.
Or like you can look at it kind of like a pithing needle, sort of.
It's better though because it
Yeah,
turns off everything.
yeah.
Like
It does turn off everything. It's like if a creature has trample, it's now going to lose trample. Like say Primeval Titan. For
yeah,
example, this is a very powerful card against the Titan decks because you counter the ability of the Titan when it enters the battlefield to search for lands. So they don't get to
or
search for any lands, and it doesn't get to get any when it attacks because that trigger is now gone, and it doesn't have trample anymore. So it's not going to do almost anything. They just have like a 6/6, and we can beat a single 6/6.
yeah, or we can counter the Amulet of Vigor trigger,
That
and all those Ravnica Karoo lands are pretty bad all of a sudden.
Yes, if you the every time that those come in, so they'll cause the amulet to trigger, and then you can turn off the amulet forever that way. So it's very powerful, and it's also worth mentioning just as like a flash creature. It means that now all of a sudden your hands, without Ether Vial, are still a lot more playable because you don't have to play at sorcery speed anymore. You can like wait till your opponent's turn because now you have Hexcatcher, Trickster, Tidebinder, maybe like Force of Negation. There's so much stuff you can do at the end of your opponent's turn, and this is just adding to the pile of that. And I think that's actually worth a lot because now your opponent, like, they have so much stuff to play around, they're not going to know what it is that you're holding up in your hand. So is it this? Are you holding a Trickster or what? Like, they're going to make mistakes, and you're going to be able to capitalize on it with this now. So it makes all
Yeah,
the non-file hands so much better.
it's so nice to be getting better at being a blue deck that doesn't have to play on its own turn.
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
very
we're not going to be full flash anytime soon, but like we've
it,
got some good flash tools in the suite now.
it helps us play that like tempo kind of control role a lot better because now we don't have to fully commit like on our own turn and just walk into sweepers and stuff. It helps us play around that better. But yeah, its ability counter. There's so many relevant things that it counters, like the elementals. Like if your opponent's trying to like kill your board off with a fury, you can flash this in and counter the fury's effect so that it can't deal any damage. Or
Yeah, and if that Fury is still around because they paid full price for it, it doesn't have double strike anymore. It's just a 3/3 that they paid 5 for,
yep,
which
uh,
is not the most efficient.
your opponent puts in Cauldron Complete. You can counter the living weapon trigger, and now all of a
Yeah,
sudden they have an
I
artifact
cannot
that does nothing.
I cannot wait for my next Death and Tactics matchup. And that's a phrase I never thought I would say.
Yep. You can stop Giver of Runes, which has been a huge thorn in our side for a lot of combats. Um,
We can mess with Stoneforge Mystic,
yep.
make it so they can't even find the Calvra.
Correct. Yep. You can also it's good against like the Hammer Time decks because you can when they try to flash in like say a Colossus Hammer using their Cigar Aid, you can just counter the trigger that lets it equip for free, and now all of a
Yeah,
sudden their hammer is stuck there.
it won't turn off the Cigar Aid forever because Cigar Aid is an enchantment, but it could still stop that critical trigger that gives you the time to win the game.
Yep. So
One thing I'm really excited about is doing things with this with Ether Vial. I'm sure a bunch of players have been up against various permutations of blue-white control and a certain 3-mana Planeswalker with a really annoying static ability.
yeah, and as soon as they activate it, if you can vial in a Tidebinder, you can counter it, and now all of a sudden it doesn't lock you out of casting counter spells anymore.
So we have a new answer to Time Raveler, which is pretty cool.
Now the caveat here is you have to have Ether Vial on 3 in order to be able to use this to do it.
Right, because we still have to turn his abilities off before we can start casting things at instant speed again.
But yeah, it can mess with that. It can also mess with stuff like Ren and 6 and just turn off that Planeswalker entirely.
There's just endless things we could do with this, and like even if it's not one of the 3 card types that get completely turned off with Tidebinder, there's just going to be so much value going around. Like I I really want to finally get a win against Brian Cook, and I want to do it by using Tidebinder to stifle his Storm Trigger.
Yeah, that is also a thing you can do. Yeah, I know. I think I've played against him like 3 or 4 times, so it's always really fun seeing what kind of random storm nonsense he has brewed up. His channel is also really good. If you're ever interested in playing any kind of combo decks, like you should definitely check out the Epic Storm. Like I watch it. It's fun. He's got interesting, not just Storm, but like and all kinds of like stuff. So like High Tide and Modern. There's like a Twiddle Storm that I've seen him play, or like Pioneer had its Lotus Field combo. So yeah, the Tidebinder is going to be able to counter all of those like storm triggers though. So like if you're relying on something like Tendrils of Agony, yeah, Storm's not going to happen. We're going to counter that triggered ability, and they're going to die.
Yeah, and Veil of Summer will not help them because countering a triggered ability is not the same as countering a spell.
No, it is not. So
But shameless plug for a second. If you want more information on how Tidebinder works and all the weird interactions, I am working on updating the Legacy Primer, and there's going to be a lengthy section on top of the section about Tideshaper and Trickster to cover all the weird edge cases of layers and such, which is one of the harder parts of the game to grok sometimes.
yes, and you can find that over on the Merfolk Discord, which there is always a link in the description of these videos to that. And I highly recommend if you have any interest in playing Merfolk at all, you should come and check it out. Because we have more educational resources for this than you could ever reasonably hope to get for free. So
Yeah, I mean, we've got some well-known Merfolk players. We've got just a very welcoming community, honestly. Like, it's probably the best gaming community I've been in as far as like people just being friendly and supportive. And we're all here to play the silly card game in a similar way, and I think people get that for the most part.
yeah. So this is I think this has been a really good set for us, especially these last two cards that we talked about. Tishana's Tidebinder is going in, I think, every single Merfolk deck, regardless of format. Even the Vintage deck, I think, wants this card in it because it just
Yeah,
does
they can cast it
so
off
much.
Lotus.
Yeah, you can, and it
They
can.
can cast it off Lotus, and when the opponent tries to do Time Vault shenanigans, oh
Mm-hmm.
look, your Time Vault is a do nothing now.
Yep, and then you just end up you can steal the Time Vault and then worry about getting rid of Tidebinder later or something. So
Yeah, there's just tons of things we can do with this silly card. It's gonna be great.
so yeah, that's all I've got about this. Is there anything else you want to throw out there before we wrap up here?
Not a lot. I mean, I'm super excited. MTGO has the Deck Brewer Pass thing up for the next 2 weeks. So if you want to play with the new cards and you're not sure what you want to get yet, it's a great opportunity to playtest. And come hop on the server and brew with us. It's a great time to be a Merfolk player and to figure out how we can use the new toys to the most benefit.
Yep, and in addition to some of these, we also had a couple awesome reprints, I should say. Lord of Atlantis had a few new printings of it recently, and Cavern of
Yeah,
Souls just got reprinted. So
yeah.
if you
The new cavern is pretty, and I got to get my hands on that new special guest lord.
if you don't own caverns, this is probably your best chance to like get them without them being super expensive. So
Yeah, and like there's also a bunch of neat limited Merfolk too that we didn't cover today, like the green blue signpost uncommon that supercharges your explore triggers.
yeah, I think that one is in the commander deck as well.
I think she is.
So, but yeah, Merfolk is going through a little bit of a resurgence now. We've been one of the only creature decks that has kind of weathered the storm of Modern Horizons, and even a lot of other people who don't particularly like Merfolk have acknowledged that like we're one of the last tribal decks that are still standing strong, and this is definitely going to help us continue to thrive and give us a lot more tools for more decks. I mean,
Yeah, although
there's a couple builds that we haven't even talked about, like Deeproot Pilgrimage comboing off with stuff like Kiora's Follower or like Pure Sight Marrow. So like even like Murpho combo now might be a thing because of some of these new cards, or we might have some like more flash control decks, maybe with like Brineborn Cutthroat because we have more flash tools now. So there's a lot of directions for a lot of these lists to go in, and there's going to be tons of testing and playing it, but the new cards are all really, really nice, and I think they're going to be super, super impactful to the deck in pretty much every format.
yeah, I think we just need to make sure we get our paper tide binders before the other blue decks realize how stupidly good this card is.
Yeah, I opened up one in the pre-release, and I already have the three more on the way, so looking
Excellent.
forward to that. So
And yeah, we need to figure out how to make the Kiora's follower combo work because I want to start jamming Splinterfin because that name is just excellent.
yeah, we've been trying to make Splinterfin a real thing for a long time, but it has yet to transcend from meme to dream status.
But we're one step closer with this new set, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's a pioneer combo deck that can like make infinite creatures, so maybe we'll see. And it's also it works with like Glasspool Mimic and the Mind Link mech, so I think that helps. There's
Yeah,
enough pieces. Collected Company can help find a bunch of that stuff too. And I mean, even when you don't have all the pieces, like they're just generically fine because of Deeproot Pilgrimage. Every time that you use them, you're just getting free value anyway. So
yeah, and like Kiora's follower is not terrible out in a non-combo situation
it means you
because
can
it's
cast Company. And,
acceleration.
yeah, on turn 3, you can cast Collected Company with it. It's not bad. It means that you now have to kill that follower, or you're risking like dying a lot.
Yeah, it still does something even if it's not doing the full combo.
So, all right. Well, I think that's all we've got for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this updated state of the Merfolk review. I think all these cards are really cool. I'm looking forward to getting a bunch of them. So that's all I've got for now. And PixelTamer, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah,
And
anytime.
we'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.
Bye, folks.
Yeah, that was good rock talk.